Welcome to Express and Refresh. I'm your host, Sports Hire. Today we will go over Week 3, all things Week 3, Week 3 NFL recap, as well as the Week 3 Monday Night Football. Wow. So first, before I get into the Cowboys Eagles finish, I want to say that I will later will be joining my cousin Suliman, who we will go over Week 3 and all things that happened this Sunday. Now, before we also get into the game, I just also want to shout out the Manningcast. If you guys have not been tuning into the Manningcast has been phenomenal. You get inside stories with Eli Manning and Peyton Manning, as well as you get to see guest hosts. Today we got to see the great LeBron James. We got to see the great Nick Saban, Chris Long, and as well we also got those are the players we got to see, as well as Matthew Stafford. So, and we'll get into his performance later in the podcast. So I really thought that the Cowboys and the Eagles game was going to be like a huge game, especially since the way the Giants and Washington football team has been playing. I thought this was going to be a game for like NFC East, and it could be both of them for the division. But the Cowboys may have really separated themselves from the rest of the NFC. In fact, they could be like a contender. Well, they could be like a really good team in this NFC East, and remains to be seen. But they've been really good so far. I mean, I've been impressed so far with what I've seen with the Cowboys, and I'm a Giants fan. I don't really like saying that, but I got to give credit where credit is due. The Cowboys have looked phenomenal, and as a Giants fan, I've always liked Dak Prescott. Even though I've rooted against him all the time. I like him as a person. I mean that comeback story. I was so unfortunate to have his ankle like that. And Dak Prescott just has a really good character. He's a love guy. It's so hard not to root or love Dak, just his character and everything, and his whole story. Phenomenal guy. And really, Dak has been playing, phenomenal from start to finish this whole season. Now, obviously, against the Chargers last week, he didn't do too well, but he did enough to get the win for them. And against the Bucks too, he was played phenomenal. Had a game-winning, which could have been a game-winning drive. Of course, Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, did what he always does and performs in the clutch. But yeah, Dak Prescott was amazing today. He passed 238 yards and 3 touchdowns. Two of them to Dalton Schultz, one I think to Cedric Wilson. But overall, great performance by Dak Prescott today. And Zeke was phenomenal as well. Obviously, I think people, kind of got scared. Like Tony Pollard did a good, and I think that motivated Zeke to say, "I'm the running back on this team," or there's a reason why Jerry pays me a lot of money. So I think 12 million a year. But yeah, Zeke said, "I'm the reason. I'm gonna prove to everyone why I get paid 12 million a year." So he showed out and he balled out. 17 carries for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns. Phenomenal performance by Zeke as well. So I really just thought this Cowboys, offense just really came together. Dak didn't have to throw 50 times. Didn't throw that much, and Zeke really got the ball running. And yeah, they both played a phenomenal performance there. And this Cowboys defense was amazing. I mean, oh my God, they picked off Jalen Hurts twice after allowing him to throw 2 deep balls, and they got the ball twice, and one of them even scored a pick six, so that was phenomenal. And as well as that, most of it was 3-and-outs. They did not allow the Eagles to convert at all on third down. At least they were 33% on third down conversions today. I mean, the Cowboys' defense has been phenomenal. They were really great against, Justin Herbert, getting 2 picks off in the end zone, and they allowed 4 turnovers against the Bucks. I mean, this Cowboys defense is quite underrated. Now we go further. We look at the Eagles now. I mean, Nick Sirianni. There was a lot of unknowns about Nick Sirianni. Um, he was, I think, the Indianapolis Colts offensive coordinator. Not much was known about him. We thought he was going to come and fix Carson Wentz, but then Carson Wentz got traded to the Colts. So now he's off with Jalen Hurts, who was in Alabama system, had some upside. I thought he was pretty good. He was always something. I thought he could have been decent at quarterback. I thought he was going to go to the Ravens because I thought that's what his skill set was. And the way he played tonight, I mean, he had a good couple deep balls. He played pretty. He's been playing really pretty good this so far this season, but today it just fell flat. Throwing 2 picks. I mean, that pick six. I mean, you can't do that. Devontae Smith tripped, and you throw that pick is unacceptable because you know how dangerous it is. You're in Cowboys territory, and you make that mistake, unacceptable. And and like you start off the drive with you have 2 deep balls, a chance to come back into the game, and then you throw 2 picks. I mean, it's unacceptable. You can't be making those mistakes out there, and not converting on third down and all. The Eagles' offense was just stagnant today. I mean, I know Jalen Hurts threw for 328, I believe, but most of those yards, I mean, that was when the game was over. Like he couldn't convert on third down today. He only had, I think, like converted like two or three third downs today. Didn't look good for the Eagles. Most of them were three and outs, and that allowed the Cowboys to just run out the clock, and they just couldn't get on the field. They just couldn't convert, and I think that was the problem with the Eagles. They played really great against the Niners, who we all know is probably a contender. And I was impressed with how the Eagles played, but today they just felt so flat. They couldn't do much. They couldn't move the ball down the field today, and the Cowboys stopped them real good. And the defense, now credit to the defense. I mean, with Brandon Graham out, it's never easy for the Eagles defense. I thought they played pretty good too. They allowed, I think, a fumble. Like they got a fumble after the Cowboys were in their own territory, and they stopped that from happening. They also allowed a turnover run down. So this Eagles defense was playing hard. It's just that the Eagles offense wasn't really putting much stuff out there. They just couldn't stop the Cowboys, and they couldn't really get anything going out there. And it's just unfortunate how it happened. I still don't think they're utilizing Miles Sanders enough. They used him a lot, I think, the first game, but they didn't use him a lot in this game today. They didn't utilize him, and he's like one of the strong points of this Eagles offense. That was some of the problems with Doug Peterson there too. They didn't allow Miles Sanders to get going, and I think that was the difference maker in this game. They just kept throwing the ball too much and allowed Jalen Hurts to get there, and that's what happened. They just didn't allow the running game going on, and they allowed the Cowboys to proceed. So takeaways, the Eagles still not forcing Jalen Hurts to make some tough throws and forcing him to throw too much, not getting the ball to Jalen Hurts, and the Cowboys, credit to them though. I think the Cowboys. This is a huge Cowboys win. Putting up 42 points. I mean, and the way the defense played. I mean, this Cowboys team is going to be a force to be reckoned with. I mean, this team is amazing. So looking forward, the Cowboys are going to play the Panthers. Is what's going to be a huge game. Probably the main 1 o'clock Fox game next week, as they're going to play the Panthers, which should be a huge game. 3-0 Panthers, where the 2-1 Cowboys. It's going to be a huge game. Huge game. Panthers obviously have a really good defense. I believe they're the number one ranked defense. Meanwhile, the Cowboys have a really good offense. In fact, should be a top 5 offense. So, be interesting. Going to be enjoyable. So, it'll be a phenomenal performance. Meanwhile, the Eagles will go up against the Chiefs at 1 o'clock. Sorry. It should be a really good game, though, for the Cowboys and Panthers. Eagles and Chiefs, I think the Chiefs will look for a rebound game. And if the Eagles offense can, hopefully rebound their defense, I did like from what I saw in like the first few quarters, but the second half, I think the Eagles offense just wasn't allowed them to pull through. So unfortunate how the game ended for the Eagles, but yeah, just a huge win for the Cowboys. And I really think that they may make some noise here if the defense can stay healthy and if their offensive line can stay healthy. I think they have a chance to make some huge noise. Go. All right, now welcoming on a special guest is my cousin, who is from Rider University and is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. My cousin Suliman Jelani.
What's going on, fellas? What's going on, Sabor? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How are you?
I could be better if the Steelers knew how to run the football and protect Ben Roethlisberger, but that does not seem to be the case right now.
Oh, no, it does not. We're going to get into all that, guys. So we're going to just break down every week 3 games that happen. So I guess, you know what, since you're the guest, why don't we start with you? So let's go over that Steelers and Bengals game, which was a surprisingly, I wouldn't say a blowout, but, the Bengals kind of dominated that game. I thought it was just a wild game. What are your thoughts, though? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say surprisingly the Bengals won, but I mean, with how this offense is and what we knew about it going into the season, I'm not surprised at all. The O-line's got 4 or 5 new starters, 2 rookies. Seems like Ben is getting hit on every other play. He's rushing throws. He's not seeing the field properly. Najee Harris, who is apparently supposed to turn our run game around, to no fault of his own, though. He's getting hit in the backfield, too. It's like every time he gets the ball, there's a defender in his face, and he has to create something on his own. And to go along with that, the defense, I feel like now is trying to do too much, trying to force, turnovers, jumping balls. Now they're giving, big plays up to Jamar Chase. Last week they gave up a big play to Henry Ruggs that I thought, was the game changer. And, just whenever the defense seems to force a turnover, the offense gives it right back. I mean, Terrell Edmonds got an interception off Joe Burrow. the offense gave it right back. I mean, you got to be able to capitalize that. And looking at their next three games, you got Green Bay coming up. You got, the Broncos playing really well on defense. Teddy Bridgewater seems to be playing really well. And, Russell Wilson, he's one of the best in the league. So this offense needs to figure it out unless, you go back to 1976 where the Steelers started 1-4 and then won their last 9 games with the defense allowing 3 points per game in the last 9 games and 5 shutouts. I honestly don't see, much hope as of right now. I see this team more of, maybe picking in the top 15 as opposed to going into the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely going into the season, a lot of people thought the Steelers were going to be, like this not a good team, but like people push back saying, Mike Tomlin, he's a great coach, never had a losing season, but
Yeah, that looks like it's going to be in jeopardy.
I mean, yeah, it looks. I mean, I don't think they're going to fire him in no way, shape, or form just because you have one losing season. But it hasn't been looking good for them. They haven't won a playoff. They haven't won like a major playoff. They've won like I think 2 playoff games in the past 10 years, and it just hasn't been really good on that part. And most people even thought the Steelers, even the Steelers fans, thought we're not going to go like 7-9. We won't make the playoffs, but we won't. But clearly, it's the defense, and I think you forgot to another mention, and what I mentioned also earlier was, and going into the game, we didn't know whether or not T.J. Watt was going to play, and I really think that was a huge factor into this game. He really leads that defense, and I think he's just a centerpiece, and he allows all the defenses to kind of go in there. He's kind of like I wouldn't say he's like Nick Bosa on that Niners like line. Like when Nick Bosa went down, the Niners really weren't the same defensive front, but when Nick Bosa's there, everyone else could be like articulated. So I really thought without TJ Watt, the Steelers defense just kind of looked flat. And I knew like with DJ Watt, the Bengals obviously we know don't have a good offensive line, and Joe Burrow was going to have trouble all day. And I thought it would be a closer game, but without TJ Watt, it changed the whole game, and it allowed Joe Burrow to just hit Jamar Chase down the field and really just pick apart the Steelers defense completely.
And one thing that I saw in this game that was very uncharacteristic, and yes, TJ Watt being out is huge. Alex Highsmith being out is huge. Even Stephon Tuitt, he's mourning the death of his brother. Hope everything is well with him, but he's out also. And, those are 3 components of your pass rush, which really is the backbone of this team right now. I mean, we saw in the first game against the Bills, they held the Bills to 16 points. And, I mean, that Bills offense is, I think it's pretty good, and then you go into Oakland and, okay, yeah, TJ Watt went down, but, I mean, you cannot give up the big play like that. That's the calling card for Henry Ruggs. You got to keep a safety over the top. And, another stat I look at, I mean, I felt like this stat defines the Steelers right now. One number is 58. That's the number of pass attempts that Ben Roethlisberger attempted. If I see a number greater than 50, and that's the only number that you show me with the Steelers, I'm going to tell you they lost the game because, one, they're trailing. The run game stinks, which, I mean, they said they were going to improve the run game. It's an improvement, but it's ranked number 31st, which I guess is improvement, but not by much.
No, not by much at all. And, the Steelers defense, I mean, the Steelers, their whole mentality was all about defense and having defense and running the football. And, Najee Harris, who had a phenomenal game, but not a touchdown, they just haven't been able to utilize him at all, really, in a much way. And the offensive line is part of that, but also I think it just not being able to use him to his strengths. You're allowing Ben Roethlisberger to throw 45 pass attempts. Like, it's unacceptable. And, Big Ben, obviously we know this is like his last line to defense, as like, something viral video that went up was Ben Roethlisberger trying to kind of scramble, but he wasn't able to. I think it just shows you, Big Ben just hasn't been Big Ben really hasn't been the same quarterback that we all know and love. And, you look back at all like the big Steelers teams back in the day, they all had strong running backs. Like you look at Le'Veon Bell, who I know is, I think on the Ravens now, practice squad. So different now. You had someone like Rashard Mendenhall, who wasn't maybe the best running back, but he was crucial to that Steelers defense. And also you have the great,
Jerome
Bettis. That's something I forgot his name.
Yeah, right now looking at this running game, it's like it's a big embarrassment to guys like Franco Harris, Barry Foster in the 90s, Jerome Bettis in the 2000s. You know how well that those teams used to run the ball. They used to come out and punch you in the mouth. Like they knew that the run was coming. They still couldn't stop you. But now it's just, the 31st ranked run game, let Ben throw it 50 times, which you can get by 1 or 2 games, maybe in the regular season. But when you come playoff time and you're playing Patrick Mahomes, you're playing Josh Allen, and some of these great quarterbacks, you got to keep them on the sideline,
And,
and because they can't beat you when they're on the side when they're on the sideline. And right now, this offense can't go toe to toe with those guys. They need to rely on the run game, ball control offense, let their defense come through, But we'll see how the season plays out. We got a long way to go, but right now, it's code red in Pittsburgh.
no doubt about that. And especially when you look at they going 1-2 now in the division, and also losing to two AFC teams at home. I think that's crucial. And and you had to the Bengals. I mean, I think we all knew Joe Burrow, who had a phenomenal game against the Vikings, who didn't look too great against the Bears. Obviously, we know the Bears have a nice, good, decent defense, and he threw 3 picks over there. Tough to play in Chicago, but really rebounded and really had a phenomenal game. And Jamar Chase, who's been phenomenal, and a lot of people were criticized him, the Bengals, for not taking Penei Sewell, who's obviously one of the best offensive tackles that we've ever seen in the draft. It's now he certainly played crucial to being a core member of that Bengals team, and the defense has been improved, and they've been really strong. They've only been allowed 20 in Chicago, allowed 24 against Minnesota, and now allowing 10 in Pittsburgh. So I think their defense is improving. So I think this Bengals team, I mean, I know the Steelers are on the downfall, but this Bengals team is only going up from here. And Joe Burrow,
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
think
foundation to
I
build
said
on.
going into this season, I think come season end, Joe Burrow is going to be the best quarterback in this division. Now, will the Bengals make the playoffs? Maybe, maybe not. But I think they have their quarterback for the next 10, 15 years. That
Mhm.
duo of Burrow and Chase is going to give a lot of secondaries problems. And yeah, let's just say as a Steelers fan, I don't want to go up against them twice.
And also to I guess add on to the Steelers, they didn't also have T Higgins, who obviously we know Joe
Yeah,
Burrow and him had really great connection last year, and also kind of surprised a lot of people. I thought because of that huge connection T Higgins and him have, that why one they draft Jamar Chase when you have T Higgins who could be just as good, but clearly now we see Jamar Chase has a chance to be like a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, kind of replacing an AJ Green legend who I think will be really good.
yeah,
But so far the Steelers, are not looking really good right now. The Bengals on the upside, and the Bengals may even have a chance to win this division. I mean, it all depends. The Ravens and the Browns
yeah.
also won their games, so and we'll get into those games later. But now turning over to the other side, we are going to the NFC East. The New York Giants dropped a heartbreaking loss again to the Falcons 17-14, and I just want to say what an embarrassment. I mean, you going into the season, Dave Gettleman, you sign Adoree Jackson, you sign Kenny Galladay, you sign all, and you draft all these options. You draft all these options to say, yo, we want Daniel Jones to prove him that he's well. Now Daniel Jones, I have to say Broncos game, they have a really good defense, so and they've been playing phenomenal. So I'm not going to hold Daniel Jones to that game. I mean, that's a really good team. Probably may even make the playoffs. Against Washington, he played phenomenal. We should have won that game. A lot of turnovers, or a lot of just plays that didn't go our way. And Daniel Jones obviously had that touchdown run. Today, I thought Daniel Jones played pretty good. He played all right. Had a lot of deep balls, but I really just it's unfortunate about the staff. Like first the staff, Joe Judge. I mean, you're not mishandling those timeouts, and this is a coach who we all thought was phenomenal. We all thought he was like the next Belichick or something. He mishandled the timeouts. Mishandled timeouts in the second half when it's more crucial. Not going for it on 4th and 5 when you're in the Falcons territory, and when we have a kicker who's phenomenal and can kick a 56-yard field goal. I don't understand that call, not going for it in Falcons territory. I don't understand that the coaching staff is not giving Daniel Jones these opportunities to win. And Daniel Jones, obviously, getting sacked another. It's the coaching staff not establishing the run. Saquon Barkley obviously hasn't been himself, but he's had so many good runs so far. And the coaching staff, Jason Garrett especially, has not been giving Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley an opportunity to win, and they're not going for it when they need to. They're playing scared football, and they're not allowing the Giants to win. And the defense, who we all thought was phenomenal last year, can't stop anything. They allowed Matt Ryan. They allowed Matt Ryan to back-to-back drives to go down the field and win this game. Top 10 teams, and the offense obviously didn't help, but the defense couldn't help up. And the first three quarters they were phenomenal, but they just weren't able to stop. They just weren't able to get to Matt Ryan
Yeah,
and stop
I
him.
mean, Saquon looked like a bright spot. He looked like the Saquon that you guys drafted him to
Mm-hmm.
be, like how he was in his rookie season. But I guess the main question, is right now for Giants fans is, do you think Joe Judge is the right head coach? Do you think he's on the hot seat? Do you think he should be on the hot seat?
I mean, it's a good, but it's just not phenomenal though, and it's amazing. Joe Judge. I mean, there were a lot of bright spots. I mean, Daniel Jones played good, but not going down the field when Daniel Jones, we know that's his deep spot. Only went down the field once, and obviously we had a lot of injuries with Slayton going down, Shepard, who's probably been our best player this whole season, and Blake Martinez, who's a tackling machine, also went out. So a lot of injuries there. But it's all about coaching and getting the next man up. And I just thought the Giants just were not, an embarrassment, honestly, especially on Eli Manning Day, and only scoring 14 points when we have all these weapons like Kenny Galladay and Saquon Barkley still, and to a team that was ranked one of the worst defenses in the league, and we couldn't stop them, and we couldn't score. We couldn't score. It was just unacceptable and just an embarrassment, really. Also on Eli Manning Day, when he's getting his jersey retired, just an absolute embarrassment. Now, hat tip to the Falcons; they made a great defensive plays, and Matt Ryan, got the job done in the fourth quarter. So hat tip to them, but just an embarrassment lost by the Giants, and it's unacceptable, honestly.
Yeah, man, it's rough for both of our squads right now.
It's not looking good for either of them. Obviously, you guys got the win
Yeah.
over the Bills, and we'll kind of go into that now, leaving into the Bills, who played a former rival. And also, I want to say to the ladies and gentlemen in the audience, the Bills play the Washington football team, and basically, what happened this year is the 17th game was added to the season. So basically, you would play. So for example, it would be like AFC East would play the same place division, same place finisher in the NFC East, and so it'd be AFC East versus NFC East, AFC North versus NFC West. I believe it's AFC West versus the NFC North, and finally the AFC South versus the AFC South versus the NFC South. So Bills and Washington played this game as they both finished the same place division. So I mean, my thoughts on this game, I really thought the Bills. I mean, they just showed themselves as their offense, and I mean that's what I learned today. Josh Allen is phenomenal. I mean, the Bills are going to be a phenomenal offense. And Heineke did make some really good plays in the first half. Who almost got the Bills Washington back after being down 21-0, but the Bills just phenomenally pushed around and they just scored and relentlessly destroyed the Washington football team. And a defense that we thought was phenomenal. They did allow Justin Herbert. They did really well against Justin Herbert, but allowed Daniel Jones and Josh Allen to really do amazing. So we know clearly this offense, this Washington defense, I was surprised was going to be phenomenal, but the Bills just were able to fire in all cylinders today, and Heineke wasn't really able to do much. And their Bills defense is actually starting to come into form, similar like how they were in 2018. What were your thoughts on this game, though?
Yeah, I think it's Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders. They're probably the team that does not need to run the ball at all because of how well their passing game is. Josh Allen showed it. I mean, Josh Allen, he's the de facto running game, right? I mean, anytime they get into the red zone or near the goal line, it's Josh Allen taking a quarterback draw, or the play breaks down. He's got open space ahead of him because of all the attention that Diggs brings in. And this Bills defense, they improved up front with adding Gregory Rousseau, Boogie Basham. They got Ed Oliver from a first round pick. They got guys like Tremaine Edmonds. Their secondary, I think, is one of, if not the best, with Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White. And, I think their biggest problem was not having the pass rush. The secondary was there, but, you could have the great secondary all you want. You're going to go up against Patrick Mahomes and give him all that time. He's going to shred you apart. Tyreek Hill, he doesn't stop. He's
Mm-hmm.
going to, if he sees Mahomes running out, he's going to, improvise himself. And, we all know Travis Kelce. But, I think the Bills, are one of the, top 3, 4 teams in the league. I expect them to be in the mix come season's end and fighting for that 1 seed for sure. My biggest question with the Bills is how did you manage to lose to the Steelers after what we've seen with the Steelers in the past 2 weeks? Somebody on Twitter joked it's like somebody needs to launch an investigation as to how the Bills possibly blew that game against the
I
Steelers.
mean,
But
it's yeah. I
yeah,
mean, I think my answer to that, and sorry to cut you off, but my answer to that is probably TJ Watt. I really think TJ Watt was different. And I thought, the Bills
TJ Watt's a big difference for sure, but man, you can't keep relying on one guy to do
upsets happen
everything.
all the time. I really thought, going back to that game, I thought the Bills they kind of were struggling and had to find themselves in that game. So I think they, after embarrassing loss, at home, I really think the Bills responded smoothly. They picked apart the Dolphins and they picked apart, Washington football team. I think the Bills, are on like a storm right now. That loss motivated them, and I feel like they're on pace to, after not, scoring any points really in that first game, they really have been able to fire on all cylinders so far. So really looking forward to what's going on with the Bills. Going on to our next game, we have a similar team in the AFC East. We have the Patriots and the Saints. And many people, talking to people, going into this game, a lot of Pats fans thought that this was going to be a litmus test to see whether or not if they were good or not, and whether or not if they were good. And clearly, the Patriots are still, I mean, all I'm going to say is they're in rebuilding mode. That's all I have to say. And Mac Jones was just under pressure all day today, throwing 3 picks. And the Saints, they responded really well to after the devastating after a crushing loss to the Panthers. They really responded really well. Jameis looked great, and the defense just was phenomenal. And they were just able to take the ball away from Mac Jones and really put a lot of pressure on him. And Kamara absolutely shined in the performance. How about you? What do you think?
I mean, you talk about the Saints. You got Jameis Winston, Kamara, and not to mention Michael Thomas is going to be back at some point later in the year, and they're doing all of this without him. And I only think that Michael Thomas will make the offense better. I think, career-wise, we all know Drew Brees is, far and away better than Jameis Winston. It's not even close. But you look at what Brees was going through at the end of last season, his arm looked dead to me. Like he was having trouble completing a 10-yard slant route. But I think with Jameis Winston, he has more arm strength. I mean, granted, he doesn't have the, savviness and the IQ of Drew Brees, but with Winston, you can push the ball down the field. Teams are not just going to crowd the box against Alvin Kamara. I think, we saw Marquez Callaway. He came down with a nice touchdown pass, albeit it was a very lucky play. I think Jameis is probably not going to ever do something like that again. But yeah, the Mac Jones got, I think, his welcome to the NFL moment, and he's going to learn from it. He's a smart guy coming from Alabama. I only think he's going to get better as well. And speaking of which, you got Tom Brady returning to New England next week. Well, so I think both Brady and Belichick coming off losses. Neither loses twice in a row, so it's going to be a very interesting matchup.
Indeed, it will. And I think another point that I really wanted to emphasize from this game and final takeaway was Sean Payton. I really thought Sean Payton kind of just outdueled Belichick. And, the defense has been really good so far for New England. They've been really, really phenomenal. Obviously, getting 3 picks off Zach Wilson and only allowing the Dolphins 17 points. So I really thought, Belichick's been really good. But I think it just shows you how well Sean Payton is. We know how well Jameis is. Jameis had that 30 for 30 year, 30 touchdowns and 30 picks. He also led the year in passing yards. So I think we all knew that Jameis had the talent, and just Sean Payton able to get that talent away and really coach out of the turnovers. Obviously, weren't too many turnovers for the Saints today. Sean Payton. I mean, it just shows you, it was not all Drew Brees. It was Sean Payton too. And I think Sean Payton is showing everyone this season that he's still a phenomenal coach and obviously a top 5 coach still in the NFL. Doesn't matter there's no Drew Brees. He's still a top 5 coach in the NFL, and he's really showing everybody today. Going next into the next, we have another good coach who's kind of been struggling so far is the great Frank Reich, who is 0-3 against the Titans. And the Titans obviously a phenomenal win.
I thought this game was defined by 2 things. Colts being 3 of 12 on third downs. They did convert a couple of fourth downs, but ultimately I think the Titans defense stood very strong against Carson Wentz. And the Colts their red zone woes continue. I mean, you're gonna go into the red zone and go 1 of 3. You're not gonna win football games.
Hmm.
You gotta, you're not gonna get presented with that many chances, especially with Tannehill turning the ball over a couple of times. They did take advantage of the one, but I feel like, they should have taken advantage of the other, knowing
Hmm.
that, Carson Wentz got 2 sprained ankles. Everybody knows the ball's going to Jonathan Taylor, but at some point teams are going to start bringing that safety down. Do you have the trust in Wentz to complete the ball down the field? I felt like, Michael Pittman, I thought was amazing last week. So was Zach Pascal. I mean, Wentz tried to fit a ball into Pascal, but it got he got
Hmm.
sandwiched.
Yeah.
But I think another thing is also Derrick Henry, right? I mean, this guy gets, everybody knows the ball's going to Derrick Henry, and he's get 23, 25 carries a game. But what can you do to stop this guy? He's hard to tackle. You can't arm tackle him. You can't. If you try to go low, he can hurdle you. He can stiff arm you. Just ask Josh Norman about that last season. And once you get to the goal line, it's virtually impossible because he's Derrick Henry. You can't do much against him.
Yeah, I mean, I really thought the Colts, like you said, one of the things that I thought was really halting them was not converting on third down and in the red zone. I really thought that was what really kind of was the difference in this game. The defense played pretty good, so far in the first half, allowing, Matt Tannehill to get 2 picks. Also, I thought what hurt was Nelson obviously went down, and obviously Quiddy Pay, the phenomenal rookie, went down as well. So I think the Colts, have not been benefiting as well from the injuries. Carson Wentz, obviously, he can't be like the same guy. He's had that injury in training camp. And he also had that injury, sprained ankles, obviously, last week against the Rams. So the Colts just
And
haven't been.
I am a bit surprised with how Carson Wentz hasn't gotten off to the hot start that I was thinking he could, because when you look back at that 2017 season, he was the MVP until he tore his ACL.
Mm-hmm.
And you know who the offensive coordinator was? Frank Reich. Wentz seemed to thrive under him. So this felt like, a match made in heaven. I thought it was a perfect scenario for Carson Wentz. I mean, we still got a long way to go for sure, but being 0-3, you're like really behind the 8 ball right now. So, and you got a tough schedule as well. You got the Titans again. You got Baltimore coming up for them.
Super Bowl champions Buccaneers as well.
Yeah, the Bucs are coming up. I mean, the Saints, the Panthers. This Colts team, just like the Steelers, they gotta figure things out before things really begin to take a turn for the worse.
Yeah, and I think I was kind of expecting the Colts to kind of have a slow start. I thought they were going to beat Seattle, and we'll get into Seattle later, but they definitely thought they were going to drop one to the Rams and the Titans. So I'm not actually surprised by the slow start by the Colts because they had a tough schedule opening out the gate. But I do expect the Colts to kind of rebound, and they are playing in a weak division. Obviously, you have the Texans, who don't have Deshaun Watson because of that whole legal issue going on, and you have the Jaguars with Urban Meyer, who's never coached in the NFL before, and Trevor Lawrence, who is a phenomenal prospect but still hasn't really developed into the NFL. Speaking of Trevor Lawrence, we're going to head down to Duval County, where the Cardinals and the Jaguars played, and after the Cardinals missed a kick from 62 yards, and the Jaguars got 101 9-yard return. Apart from that, there wasn't really much else for the Jaguars. The Cardinals were down actually against apart from that mishap, the Cardinals were just cruising on as normal, and the Cardinals improved to 3-0. And all I got to say is, Kyler Murray, he's phenomenal. And as the Cardinals keep humming, Cliff Kingsbury is really coaching for his job, in a tough division. He did a phenomenal performance. Kyler Murray just is, definitely an MVP candidate right now. And Cardinals are just humming, and the Jaguars still haven't really been able to come into fruition yet, and still haven't really found that grasp yet.
Yeah, and the thing also was with this game was you thought after the Jags fans got excited after that long return for a touchdown, you thought maybe this game could be a little competitive. Could that be the jump start that this Jags team needed in that game? Because it seems like almost every game they have nothing going in the first half. So maybe that could have been it. But, Trevor Lawrence on that flea flicker, he throws a bad pick going off his back foot. It's best to just throw the ball away. But, he's definitely going to learn with that. Kyler Murray, he is an MVP candidate. I do agree with you with that. But I don't think that he played his best game, and I think he would tell you that as well. He tried to throw a deep pass into the end zone, into double coverage that got picked off. Guarantee that's a throw he would want back. I actually thought the Cardinals defense really propelled the Cardinals over the top with that pick six. That pick six I thought really was the deflating moment for the Jaguars. And the Cardinals, Rams, it seems like it's gonna come down to those two guys in the NFC West, and it's gonna be a big game coming up next week.
Yeah, for sure. And, tapped into that defensive line, obviously signing J.J. Watt in the offseason, who has been really good because you pair him with Chandler Jones. They've really been able to generate a lot of pressure. We saw them against the Titans, and they put a lot of pressure on, and Chandler Jones even getting 5 sacks, and the defensive pressure has been phenomenal. And also another performance that I thought was phenomenal today is, even though the Kyler Murray obviously didn't play his best game, James Conner, putting in two touchdowns in there, who former Steeler, he was phenomenal. And I think it just shows the layers of offense that this guy has. And even DeAndre Hopkins didn't have a really big game today, but the Cardinals were still able to put up 31 points. So I really think that, this Cardinals team is very layered, and their, front seven is good. I think, this is not the same Cardinals team that we all saw last year after going 6-2 and lost and dropping a couple game, dropping down to 8-8 to finish the year. I think this Cardinals team could actually go to the playoffs, and they're going to have a huge test against the Rams. And now
Rams game is really going to, be that litmus test for them to see where this team is really at. I mean, not to say that if they lose, oh my God, they're a horrible team and they can't compete
no
with
worries,
anybody.
yeah.
It's just that it seems like the Rams are, the benchmark for a lot of teams. I think the Rams are the best team in the NFL right now. I think we'll get into that later with the Rams and Bucks recap, but I think Stafford is a big upgrade over Goff. We know Aaron Donald, but we'll definitely get into that more.
And then, why don't we just head into that? So the Rams and the Buccaneers, we thought, heading into this season, that was one game I had circled in there. And I really thought that game should have been on Sunday Night Football. Joe Buck, Troy Aikman is not too shabby, but, this game I thought was going to be a huge game. And I really thought it's going to be a preview of the NFC Championship. And, my thoughts just on this game was Stafford is just phenomenal. And Stafford and Kupp, phenomenal performance. Cooper Kupp, we all thought, Robert Woods going to lead the team or everything, but Cooper Kupp has really shined today, and he's really, obviously we know how phenomenal he is. He was phenomenal with Jared Goff. And obviously that injury when he had back in 2018 kind of halted them or did not allow them to be the same dynamic offense they were in that Super Bowl season. But I thought Stafford and Kupp, just a phenomenal connection they have, and Stafford just looks so calm and looks so amazing, and everyone is really getting to see what Matt Stafford is capable of, and I think the pressure just elevates him and really allows him to do so much more. I don't think we've ever seen Matt Stafford play this good before and like out of his mind, and he's definitely an MVP candidate, and in fact maybe even be a comeback player of the year candidate, but he just looks calm and poised, and the Rams just firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, I mean, I think Stafford, Murray, Derek Carr, I think are, in any order, are your 3 MVP candidates as of right now. Stafford looks like he's playing with a lot more confidence. Playing under Sean McVay, I think maybe the best offensive play caller in the NFL. I think Cooper Kupp and Stafford have a really great chemistry right now. Tyler Higbee looks nice. You still got Robert Woods for being a possession receiver, and Deshaun Jackson still got wheels at age 34 with that deep touchdown pass. So this offense has so many ways to attack you, and not to mention that Darrell Henderson was out. He comes back. They're gonna have to respect the run game because Darrell Henderson did have a couple of good games before he got hurt. But I think the key deciding factor to me in this game was we knew the offense was gonna hum, but doing what they did to Tom Brady, we know what Aaron Donald can do. You guys look at Jalen Ramsey, Taylor Rapp in the secondary, who he saved a big touchdown pass. But I think what Jalen Ramsey did on Mike Evans, I think that was a great job. I think Aaron Donald, he when it's all said and done, I think he might be the best defensive player to ever have played this game. If I was building a team, he'd be my first pick. The reason is, what's one thing that all these elite quarterbacks hate the most is inside pressure when they get off their spot. Oh, you have a guy like Aaron Donald, who's not a defensive end. He's not an edge rusher. He's an interior defensive lineman who gets double-digit sacks and stop the run. And when you're going up against him, you better double team him, asking him to be one-on-one. You're almost asking for trouble. So, yeah, right now this Rams team seems to be the class of the NFL. I think they're the best team in the league. I think they're really gonna give the Bucks a run for their money in their quest to repeat
No
as
doubt.
Super Bowl champions.
No doubt about it. And obviously, Bucks were not playing with Antonio Brown, so it was difficult. And Tom Brady, I mean, the first half they weren't really able to do much, and really it was just the Bucks just really couldn't keep up. They were able to take care of the Falcons, and the Falcons just started to come back, and their defense kind of helped them win that game last week. But the Bucks just really couldn't keep up, and obviously it's because of that defense. We all knew that offense was going to hum, and or it was actually the difference. And obviously Brandon Staley going off to the Chargers, definitely losing him was huge, and getting Raheem Morris from the Falcons, and they are running the same scheme, which is kind of interesting, and that scheme really is working right now. But Aaron Donald just absolutely destroyed Tom Brady, and they got to Tom Brady 3 sacks. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about defense, I think that another key deciding factor was that Tampa was missing a lot of their secondary players. I think Carlton Davis got hurt in the first game. Jamel Dean was hurt. I mean, they got a great front, but you got an offense like the Rams that I think their offensive line is playing really well. You're gonna need those secondary guys to step up, and not having those two guys, I felt like was a big loss for them as well.
Oh, no doubt about it. Their secondary is kind of what's been like the strong point about that Rams that defense. And I even hear that they may consider signing Richard Sherman, who obviously has not been signed yet. And I think it'd be a huge thing, veteran leadership for that team. And the defense just hasn't been able to kind of get him in there. And I think, after losing a big game against the Rams, I wouldn't be surprised if they come and bring him in. Now going up next, speaking of Brandon Staley, we now head to the Chargers versus Chiefs game. Before we get into anything, I just want to say I thought this was a phenomenal performance, and I really think that this was more a Chargers win than it was a Chiefs loss. Now, there is still so much we have talked about the Chiefs, but I really thought that this just Chargers game was really just a coming out party for them, not going up against Dallas and just, playing flat and not finishing the drive. The Chargers came completely different. They were fierce, and they were just looking phenomenal. Justin Herbert throwing 4 touchdowns. Eckler, who was phenomenal, had a touchdown as well. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, both of them scored touchdowns. Really, I thought this Chargers game was just all about Justin Herbert showing everyone what he was capable of. Going into Arrowhead, which is a historically hard place to play, he was able to convert so much this time, able to convert those drives and get more touchdowns in the red zone. And I really just thought this Chargers team just really, and their defense especially, we all know Brandon Staley, who had the number 1 ranked defense with the Rams last year. We wanted to know if this Chargers defense was going to improve. And, Derwin James coming back in, you have players like Joey Bosa, phenomenal. But Asante Samuel getting a pick interception, I thought that was phenomenal. And forcing Mahomes to throw 2 picks was just a phenomenal performance. And I really just thought this Chargers team really came together today and got a huge win for the team.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this Chargers team, the question going in is can Justin Herbert build upon what he did last year? Let's see what the return of Joey Bosa would do. Derwin James seems to be looking like a big difference maker. That defense is a night and day difference when he's not on the field. And, although they allowed 24 points, the Chargers defense played great situational football, especially that last throw that Mahomes made. He got flushed out of the pocket. He had nowhere to throw. He just chucked the ball up and hoping that Kelsey came down with it. But, it was picked off. And I thought a large part of that was due to the pressure that was getting to Mahomes. And although I do like their coach's aggressive nature, but if I'm him, I wouldn't, I would have settled for that field goal, ran that time down a little bit and settled for the field goal. But, ultimately they came out with the W. And this Chargers team is, no team to sneeze at. This could be a team that contends for the AFC West title come season end. It could be a 3-team race. You could see maybe 3 teams come out of this division. And if the Chargers defense played like the way it did, maybe we could see an all LA Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium come February.
That'd be phenomenal and huge for LA as well. And speaking of the Chiefs, I mean, I still think that there is maybe a little talk for concern because this is the. I mean, they obviously
their defense is definitely
their defense is just not
for concern.
Their defense hasn't been phenomenal at all. I mean, they were down, so they were down huge to the Browns. Obviously, Mahomes was able to come back and win them out. And against the Ravens, their offense played a lot better and their defense played better. But in the fourth quarter, they couldn't stop Lamar at all, and Lamar just put in a performance. And then again, the defense couldn't really show up. The Chargers had a huge lead. Now the offense obviously allowed to kind of come back in there. But I think what this shows is that this defense really needs to improve for the Chiefs. Obviously, we know how well Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce are. We all know they're phenomenal. We all know they're world-class athletes. That's already said and done with. This defense really has to step up for that because not all the time Mahomes is going to be able to bail you. I know he can do it all the time, but that doesn't mean he can do it every time. I think what this shows is this defense needs to button up and play hard for this team. They clearly haven't been putting enough effort. They've been allowing almost like 25 points per game, allowing almost 30 points per game for that matter. They allowed 29 against the Browns, allowing 36 against the Ravens, and allowing 30 today against the Chargers. I mean, this defense just hasn't been able to step up for them.
And I mean, you also look at the fact that last week they had a 2-possession lead and they gave that up against Lamar Jackson. And that game, you got the Ravens where you want them, right? The Ravens, they don't tend to play well from behind, especially 2 scores. They're a team that likes to run the football, get out to a big lead, and stay on you, keep the ball. But Lamar Jackson, he showed that he can do it in this league right now. I mean, ultimately he needs to do it in the playoffs, but at least he showed sign that he can compete with the best of them. And I'm pretty sure if the Ravens do make the playoffs, they could run into Kansas City again. But they definitely showed a sign as to, they can contend with anybody.
And the Ravens also getting a huge win over the Lions, a 66-yard field goal. Justin Tucker making that before we get into the game. Justin Tucker, I mean, I think we all knew that Justin Tucker was going to make the NFL record. It was just a matter of when.
Yeah, best kicker of all time.
No doubt about it. And the great Belichick even said that. For me, I think a couple simple takeaways were I thought the Ravens, they got a high emotional win. So I thought they really played down to the competition with the Lions. So they weren't really, too concerned with this game as much. I think I didn't say they were sleeping, but they were off a high emotional win. So they kind of slept a bit or whatever. And obviously Lamar couldn't really complete a couple touchdowns to Hollywood Brown. I wasn't able to get in there. And the Lions actually played really good. They've been able to hang in there. They did really well against the Niners. Able to come back, obviously couldn't win. And, had a good first half against the Packers, but really wasn't able to do anything in the second half. Aaron Rodgers picked them apart. And this game, I thought they were really good. I think this Lions team, they're not terrible. And Jared Goff, as much hate as he gets, I mean, he did take the Rams to the playoffs last year, so he's not a scrub quarterback. He's better than most, or he's decent. And I think this Lions team's been pretty good so far. I mean, I know considering what they are, they're really good, and I think they're headed in the right direction. I think Dan Campbell, it's good.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt there. I think they've been competitive, more so than I thought personally. I thought the first game it was just gonna look like a complete blowout with San Fran running all over them. But they did, attempt to come back, although it fell short. And even against Green Bay, I thought they were competitive for a half and a little bit into the third quarter. But, Aaron Rodgers, at some point, you give him all that opportunity, he's going to take you apart. And this game, I mean, it's just bad luck, right? I mean, it's why they're one of the most snake-bitten franchises in the league, only having one playoff win in their history, which is very hard to believe. Although I do think, the Ravens, but that was a great field goal by Justin Tucker. I didn't think he was going to make it, especially after the way it hit the crossbar. But there was a delay of game penalty. We should have backed up the Ravens a little more. But I wouldn't use that as an excuse why you gave up a 4th and 19 conversion. I mean, all you need to do in that situation, guard the sticks, play deep coverage, keep everything in front of you. Don't let anybody get behind you, right? But the Lions, it's part of the reason why they're a bad team. They're 0-3 because they can't play this situational type football.
Good team.
I mean, I do think Dan Campbell's a good coach. I mean, I don't think he's bad. I think he seems like a coach that players would like to play for. But right now, this team, has a long way to go. But they
Long way
are
to
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
long
go
way
ahead.
to
Go ahead.
yeah, you're good. Sorry, long way to go for sure. And obviously mourning the loss of Jeff Okuda. I think that was tough, but they're definitely on the right track in some ways. And as they say, good teams find good teams find the ways to win, and bad teams find ways to lose.
Yeah, and although people may say, "Oh my God, the Ravens only beat the Lions by that many," but you got to also factor in the fact that Justin Houston was missing. I think they also had other key defensive players like Matabuike, their defensive lineman was missing. But winning on the road in this league is not easy. And the Ravens, they found a way to win. That's ultimately what matters. And they're looking like a team that, if Lamar Jackson improves as a passer, which I think he is making steps in the right direction, I think this team can hang with anybody. Especially when, their backfield, it doesn't seem like me and you could run in that backfield and we'd probably do good. Their system is just so good for running backs. It seems like any running back that enters into that backfield always seems to get a lot out of it.
For sure, and us also coming off a loss with J.K. Dobbins and Marcus Peters. I thought the way this team has been playing so far has been phenomenal. And the Raiders, even though they lost to the Raiders, hey, I mean, the Raiders are looking really good so
Raiders
far.
are 3-0.
Yeah, Raiders 3-0. I mean, this Ravens team, I think, probably the best that it's ever been. Obviously losing the loss of J.K. but it just shows how good John Harbaugh is. And
I mean, you think about it, that overtime game with the Raiders, Lamar Jackson doesn't fumble. I think the Ravens win that game. I thought the Ravens really had the Raiders on their heels. The Raiders couldn't stop the run. It's just that sometimes, that's the one thing with Lamar Jackson, right? He does razzle dazzle. He's a great player. He's a fun player to watch for sure. But sometimes he tries to do too much. And we saw it there. But this Ravens team is showing us that they can win. Ultimately is going to come down to playoff time. That seems to be what Lamar Jackson's main criticism is right now. But I think he definitely is taking steps in the right direction. I thought Marquise Brown let him down a couple times. He had a couple of big drops. You can't have that from your first round receiver. I mean, that wasn't on Lamar. That was purely on the wide receiver. I mean, who knows? This game could have been blown out of proportion if Marquise Brown makes those catches.
For sure. And, they have a big test coming up against Denver, which will be in next week. And it'll be a huge limit test for the Broncos and maybe even for the Ravens. And speaking of Denver won 26-0 against the Jets. And all I have to say is, the defense is phenomenal. Teddy Bridgewater is he's improving and not making any turnovers and playing situational football. Amazing. And the Jets are the Jets and are still struggling to continue.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this game. I think overall, just this whole season for the Broncos, the return of Von Miller, I think it has, done real well for the Broncos defense. I like the addition of Patrick Surtain. I think he's going to be one of the better corners in this league for years to come. And Teddy Bridgewater is, with Melvin Gordon in the backfield, Cortland Sutton, Jerry, even though Jerry Jeudy's out, Bridgewater is still, showing that he can get it done, with Melvin Gordon in the backfield. Javonte Williams looks like a running back who's going to be good in this league. That's one of the things you got to have in this league is a running game. It doesn't have to be the best by any stretch of the imagination, but the way the Broncos are designed, I think, if they run the ball and they keep that defense fresh and rested, with Von Miller coming off the edge, I think this Broncos team can be good. And this Ravens Broncos definitely a good test for both teams for sure.
For sure. And Vic Fangio is also just showing us how great of a coordinator is. Obviously, losing so many core pieces really did not allow him to be as dynamic as he wanted to. And this defense has just been amazing. And I think that's going to be really what this team is. And it's going to be old school football, punch you in the mouth, run the ball, and play defense. And something like even back in the Peyton Manning, the final year, they had a really good defense, and that ultimately won them the Super Bowl. So really, if they can just have a quarterback who can't make any turnovers and can just have a decent running game, obviously Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon was phenomenal on the Chargers and was really great last year. I think this Broncos team can be a real threat and can even maybe even win this division in the AFC.
Yeah, and as we look at the Jets, it's just a rebuilding process over there. I mean, I do think they have the right place. The right players in place. I think it's just going to take time. Zach Wilson, I think, will only get better. I think Robert Saleh is a good head coach. I think he's very well respected. You saw what he did to the Niners defense. It took him a couple of years, but he got that Niners defense to a Super Bowl. I mean, not to say that the Jets are going to go to the Super Bowl, but I do think he's the right head coach for that team.
Mike LaFleur as well, who's also phenomenal, and he's going to be their offensive coordinator. And let's see if he can make Zach Wilson into something. To touch on a couple other games real quick before we head into the Packers and the Niners phenomenal fest. Browns Bears. My only thoughts on this game was that Matt Nagy hasn't been able to. I think he's getting a lot of heat for not not starting Justin Fields and having that whole fiasco with Andy Dalton and not playing to his abilities. Justin Fields wasn't really able to get the rush at all today, and only having one net passing yard and getting sacked a lot. 9 sacks by the Browns. I mean, that's just, first of all, Browns phenomenal job by their defense. They played phenomenal, and just the defense was amazing in this game. But Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, phenomenal. But really, the Bears just not playing to Justin Fields' ability just is an embarrassment, honestly.
I mean, you look at this Bears team, right? I think defensively, they're a championship level defense for sure. Guys like Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks in the middle. It's just that I think the Bears and the Steelers, 2 of the worst offensive lines in the league right now. I mean,
and the Giants.
Like Justin Fields was getting anytime the Bears and Browns game was on, I saw Justin Fields either getting hit or getting sacked by Myles Garrett. And I mean, a lot of it, sometimes it was him holding on to the ball too much, but that O-line did him no favors whatsoever. And, we talked about Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. I thought Kareem Hunt was more so of a factor than Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb did have, about 80 yards rushing, but I thought the Bears contained him fairly well. It's just that they couldn't contain Kareem Hunt, who also is a big factor in the passing game. And not to mention the return of Odell Beckham Jr. I think that's going to do wonders for the Browns offense as well. He's a big play threat, can turn a 5-yard gain into a touchdown. With the loss of Jarvis Landry, I think he's going to be a big part of the offense as well, with teams now respecting Chubb and Hunt more with, loaded boxes. I think you'll see Odell Beckham definitely get more opportunities going down the field.
Odell, phenomenal player. He was huge on the Giants, and still kind of disappointed that we traded him away. But it's here nor there, and Odell Beckham is definitely going to put this Browns offense into a phenomenal player, and it just shows again the layers of this offense they have. They can pass, they can run. The running has really been their strong suit, and their offensive line has been phenomenal. They really kept Khalil Mack at bay and allowed them to just punch you in the mouth and go down the field. And I really just thought, the offensive line, the Browns, I feel like that doesn't get enough credit. I mean, it's probably the best offensive line in the league. Absolutely just kept the Bears defense at bay today. Put up 36 points, I believe. Phenomenal performance. So now we head on to going to the Raiders and the Dolphins. And I want to say that the Raiders should not be ashamed of losing this game. This Dolphins team is phenomenal. I think we all forgot just how good the Dolphins are, and we forgot how good Brian Flores is as a coach after getting destroyed by the Bills last week. I mean, the Dolphins are a phenomenal team. Brian Flores is an amazing coach, and he showed us today that, not having his starting quarterback, having, Jacoby Brissett, who he had ties with in New England. I mean, Jacoby Brissett put up a phenomenal performance. The Dolphins defense got a touchdown off of Derek Carr, and they were able to come back and score game-tying touchdown and put up a 2-point conversion. I really thought this game just proved to me that the Dolphins are not done yet, and they still have a lot of football left in them.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said earlier that the Dolphins won, the Raiders won the game 31-28 in overtime. I don't know if that's what you meant to say.
Apologies.
But yeah, like I said earlier, Derek Carr, I think, is one of the MVP candidates in this league. He's coming up clutch for sure. Once Josh Jacobs is healthy, I think their offense is only going to get better. Thought Peyton Barber had a big game. Fantasy owners out there picked up Peyton Barber. Must have paid big dividends for you. They got Darren Waller, right? I mean, he's listed as a tight end, but I think he's their de facto wide receiver. He's hard to cover. He's too fast for linebackers, too big for safeties, and you focus all the attention on him. You got guys like Brian Edwards. He's coming up with big catches. In the Ravens game, he came up with some big catches, and you also got Henry Ruggs going down the field. He's sort of that vertical threat that every team needs to have. And this Raiders team, I mean, let's see if they could keep it up. But right now, they're definitely showing signs that they're gonna be in it this season, and
Uh,
they're taking steps in the right direction.
their offensive line has also been really good, and obviously they lost a lot of core pieces off the offensive line. Obviously losing Gabe Jackson and Trent Brown last season, and a lot of people criticize the Raiders for just mishandling the offensive line, but so far they've been phenomenal. And they've given Derek time, and Derek Carr has really just been able to make these throws and complete passes, and even the running game has been really phenomenal. Obviously, you have Peyton Barber who stepped up as well. Josh Jacobs has been a little banged up, so really this offensive line I think has been a really underrated part of this Raiders team so far. Next up, we also have the Seahawks and the Minnesota Vikings, and I believe the Seahawks got one of the Raiders' offensive linemen via last season, off season. But the Seahawks, I mean, this game, the Vikings really have proved themselves as an offensive team, and obviously getting off that energy from putting up 33 points against the Cardinals, and obviously missing the field goal to lose that game. But the Vikings really did an amazing job. Kirk Cousins having 3 touchdowns, and Dalvin Cook obviously was injured, and Madison just really stepped up for the Vikings today, and I thought that was phenomenal.
Yeah, going into this game, Russell Wilson had a 7-0 record against Minnesota, and I thought the same thing was going to happen. At some point, Russell Wilson is just going to take over this game, and ultimately come out with the victory. But it looks like the Vikings defense came up to play. They got pieces like Danielle Hunter rushing off the edge, Eric Kendricks commanding the middle of the defense, Harrison Smith and Patrick Peterson in the back end. I don't know if the Vikings are going to be a playoff team, but they definitely have the pieces to me on both sides of the ball. I mean, Dalvin Cook still got a long way to go. You look at a guy like Justin Jefferson. I think come season end, he's going to be one of the best receivers, if not top 5 in the NFL. And whenever Thielen hangs it up or if he's let go or whatever, I think Justin Jefferson is more than capable of taking over as the number 1. And he might already be it, but I think even though he's going to get, more attention, I think he'll find a way. And one of the things I like about him is I like his attitude. Before the season, he said he's got that game against Jalen Ramsey circled. That shows me you have a lot of confidence. Jalen Ramsey's no slouch as a corner, and definitely going to be a test for not just Jefferson, but for Ramsey as well. We've seen Ramsey go up against the best in DeAndre Hopkins and other wide receivers as well. But this Vikings team definitely has the tools and the guys to, ultimately get better. But right now, I still think they're overall a young team, but I think they're taking steps in the right direction. I don't think they're a horrible team by any stretch of the imagination. Their first 2 games were lost combined 6 points. And the first game, Dalvin Cook looked like he was down by contact. The second game was just unfortunate, the kicker missing a chip shot field goal. But I think this Vikings team can hang with a lot of teams in this league. And I think they're only going to get better. I think Mike Zimmer's a great head coach, especially defensively. So, yeah, we'll see what holds for the Vikings now.
I think this defense really shined today, and obviously they had some signs against the Cardinals, only allowing them to score 10 points in the in the second half in the last game, and also the Bengals did pretty good there as well. So I think this defense really did an amazing job, getting after Russell Wilson. And speaking of Russell Wilson, I thought the Seahawks offensive line just did not allow Russell Wilson to get any favors and really do anything for them in the second half. And I just think the offensive line for the Seahawks. I mean, we understand why Russell Wilson was not happy with the Seahawks ownership, because of that offensive line. And that, I mean, it hasn't been doing any favors. And I think they have to make a solution soon, because Russell Wilson can't be running away because the whole season. You're going up against the Rams relatively soon, and you have Aaron Donald coming up there. I think the Seahawks really have to fix that offensive line, because it's what's really been hurting them so far in these past games, and the defense as well. Jamal Adams, obviously we know, can hit hard, but allowing 30 points back to back just is not acceptable. And I think Pete Carroll has to do something out there, because we know he's a defensive coach, but really that hasn't been able to do anything for them.
I think their defensive coordinator should have been let go. Ken Norton Jr. He doesn't seem to be having much of an impact on the defense. I can't really name much guys outside of Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams. Their secondary is pretty shaky. Jamal Adams, he's a bright spot in that secondary, but he's more of that safety that attacks downhill. He's not, your traditional safety that, roams like Minka Fitzpatrick and roams center field and sees what's ahead of him. I think they, if they want to contend, before this trade deadline, go see what pass rushers are out there. You can't give quarterbacks all the time in the world to throw already behind a shaky secondary. So, it's not panic time by any means in Seattle. I think Russell Wilson is definitely a quarterback who, you don't count out. I think they can get to the playoffs, but, Russ wants more. And I think in order to get that, you're going to have to get better play off that defense.
And, dropping 2 straight, it's going to be very interesting to see how the Seahawks are going to be able to respond. They have a huge test next week going up against the Niners. And speaking of the Niners, we have Sunday Night Football between the 49ers and the Packers. I mean, this game was phenomenal. I mean, most of the primetime games have delivered this season, and this delivered phenomenal. We had a classic game, Matt LaFleur versus Kyle Shanahan. It doesn't get any better than this. And they played last year, obviously, but Niners were a lot of their team was on the IR and COVID list, so we didn't really get much of a game last season. But obviously, we know the rivalry between these two teams. You have Aaron Rodgers not getting drafted by the Niners. You have the Aaron Rodgers getting destroyed by losing to him in the playoffs. But this game just delivered on all cylinders. We thought the Packers were going to run away with this 17-0, and then Kyle Shanahan makes a bold decision to go for it with 2 seconds left in the quarter, and with Trey Lance coming in there and scoring a touchdown. And I know Trey Lance, who is going to take the reins at some point, but Jimmy Garoppolo played phenomenal. Obviously, he had that crucial fumble in there, but the way he was able to respond going down the field, hitting George Kittle, and hitting huge check-in for the huge touchdown. I thought Jimmy Garoppolo really played phenomenal today, and he really shows why he's going to be the starter probably for the rest of the year.
Yeah, you look at this game, just like everybody thought. I thought, once the Packers got a big lead, that's exactly where you want the Niners. You want to stop the running game. You want to force them to throw 30, 40 times a game. Ultimately, they did end up coming back in the game, but is there a better combination in the NFL than Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams? I mean, anytime there's a big play that's needed, everybody knows where the ball is going, but you can't stop Davante Adams. I think, Rodgers and Adams, I think as long as they're in Green Bay, who knows, maybe it's their last season, maybe they come back, who knows. But as long as those 2 guys are still in Green Bay, I think this team, is going to be there at the end, contending for a Super Bowl, could be one of the last 4 amongst the last 4 in the NFC Championship game. But, I mean, one thing I would say also is I think Aaron Jones, he's looking really good as well, coming off that a great year last year and getting that hefty contract extension. He adds another dimension to their game. I feel like, maybe if they get another weapon for Aaron Rodgers, maybe get another wide receiver who's on the trading block, to take some pressure off Davante Adams, because you're going to go up against the Rams. Jalen Ramsey, he's I think I don't. I mean, I think Adams can do good, but it's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. But Aaron Rodgers, I think he's part of the MVP candidate mix as well. I think that Packers are definitely the class of that division. But ultimately, we're going to see, can this team get over the hump? 2 straight NFC championship losses, or I think 2 or 3, you could correct me on that. But
just a 2. They missed the playoffs that year, actually. Aaron Rodgers, I think, he had an injury that year, collarbone injury. He did play the whole game.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, 2 straight.
But if this is, Rodgers' last season, he wants to go out in style. He wants to be like, you guys tried to replace me, and you guys tried to replace this, and he's going to show that, I can win the Super Bowl in this league. And I think that pick really, set him off. And part of the reason why I think he hates that general manager so much during this offseason was that pick. Why couldn't you get me a wide receiver? You could just trade it up to get another quarterback who did absolutely nothing for you. So we'll see. This Packers team is going to be in it. That first game was concerning for sure, but I think their game against the Steelers coming up. I mean, looking at how the Steelers are, I think the Packers might win this game by at least 3 scores. I think this game might be over by
one more thing to wrap before we wrap up. I just think this game was also kind of a litmus test for both teams. The Niners beating the Eagles, who have a big game, who are playing the Cowboys tonight. And the Niners, I really thought, are they really for sure? Are they really like this, good team? They had beat kind of, the Lions and the Eagles, both on the road though, so that was pretty good. And the Packers, they beat the Lions as well, and they got destroyed by the Saints. So I really thought this was a limit test to see how good these teams really were. And I think it shows that these teams are both probably going to be, up there in the NFC and are probably both really good teams in the NFC. And 5 times, I think this game could have gone either way, and 5 times out of 5, they probably split individually.
Yeah,
so
I mean, you look at this conference as a whole. I think the NFC is very strong. You got the Bucks, you got the Rams, you got the Cardinals looking good, you got the Packers, the Niners. I mean, also let's give Jimmy Garoppolo some credit. He was nails on that last fourth quarter drive he led for a touchdown. Like, a lot of people were criticizing him after, that overthrow of Emmanuel Sanders. But he showed that he can get it done, and he needs to be given credit for that. And we know Trey Lance is going to most likely end up being the starter at some point, whether it's this season or next season. I think teams that can, get Jimmy Garoppolo, they're getting, I wouldn't say an elite quarterback, but I think a quarterback who is a franchise quarterback.
For sure.
Somebody you can get by with. And it didn't help that he got hit 10 times, which I thought was a great sign of his toughness to hang in the pocket and take a hit and still throw the ball. I mean, they ultimately left, a little too much time for Aaron Rodgers, but Garoppolo did show that he definitely can play in this league.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely what I'm looking, that's going to be huge. And, I think these teams could probably meet again in the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised. And, the Packers obviously next week going to go up against the Steelers. The Niners going to have a huge test against Seattle. Obviously, they did not beat Seattle last year. They got swept after sweeping them back in 2019. So it'll be very interesting to see how they match up well with Seattle. Any games in particular you're looking forward to heading on to week 4, Suliman?
I mean, I think I said this past week, this Steelers-Bengals game was, I think, ultimately the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But you lose this game to Green Bay, oh my God, I don't know. I think I think your season is done at that point. I think this is a big game for the Steelers as well. You look at their 2 opponents afterwards, the Broncos and the Seahawks. Doesn't get any easier. So I think that's a game that I'm looking forward to see. Can the Steelers right the ship? Can the Packers keep going? You talked about the Niners, Seahawks. You talked about who's playing next Sunday night? Oh, the next Sunday night. The game we're all looking forward to. Brady's return to Foxborough, Gillette Stadium. Belichick and Brady both coming off losses, and both guys don't lose two straight too often. So we'll see how that game goes. But I think Brady's going to be greeted by a big standing ovation for what he did for New England. And I think, we're going to see who wins that chess match. Bill Belichick is maybe the best defensive head coach of all time, but Tom Brady is the best quarterback of all time. So we're going to see who comes out on top.
For sure, for sure. And now to wrap up, so let's present our top 3 teams in each conference, and we'll come up with a name probably later in the season. But again, this is my second episode, so we're still working on that. But if I had to pick the top 3 teams in the conference right now, starting with the AFC, I'd probably go Bills number 1. I still think that offense and their defense has been dynamic, and I think that's what put them in number 1. Number 2, the Raiders. I still think the Raiders, even though their defense still is, I mean, it's been really good so far. Don't get me wrong. I think it's been phenomenal, but I think their defense, I need to see a little bit more from them. So that's probably go. And number 3, I'll probably go with the Broncos, because, defense has been really well and they've been playing really good situational football. How about you for the AFC?
AFC, I think Bills. I think I agree with you there. I think Josh Allen is, he's a threat rushing the ball. He's a threat throwing the ball. They also got another receiver to take the pressure off of Stephon Diggs and Emmanuel Sanders. He had a couple of big touchdowns. Second, I'm gonna actually go with the Chargers. I think what they showed me was that they can go into a hostile environment in Kansas City and come out with the W. And I think, if these guys meet again, I think it's going to be another close game. I don't think that it's going to be an easy task for the Chiefs by any stretch of the imagination. I think that, the return of Joey Bosa definitely helps. I think Derwin James is a big, coming off an injury, big night and day difference there. And third, I'm going to go with the Oakland Raiders. I think Derek Carr has been playing phenomenal. He's one of my MVP candidates. I think he might be the MVP. It's up for debate, but I think he might be the MVP due to how well he's been playing in the clutch moments. First game against Baltimore. Second game, he did really well against the Steelers on that deep throw to Henry Ruggs. He hung in there pretty well against a great Steeler front. And then this game against the Dolphins, the Raiders defense couldn't stop Jacoby Brissett at the end, but Derek Carr showed what he's been doing all season, coming up clutch in the big moments. So I think those are my top 3. You want to go ahead and give your top 3 for the NFC?
For sure. Top C in the NFC, no surprise. I think number 1, the Rams, 3-0. Their defense just has been amazing. Only allowing 14 to the Bears, 24 to the Bucks and the Colts, but still been playing great situational football. Matt Stafford definitely looking like the MVP frontrunner right now, just the way he's been able to throw, and him and Cooper Kupp. And hey, Cooper Kupp he might also get some maybe contenders for Offensive Player of the Year, and he might also be on his way to his first Pro Bowl. My second team, I'm probably going to go with. I want to go with the Niners. I really like the Niners. I really love Kyle Shanahan. I really think when their defense is cooking, I really thought their defense played phenomenal. Apart from that, turnover in the game that Jimmy had, I think it was a sack or a fumble with that play. The Niners only allowed like a touchdown in the second half to Aaron Rodgers, and they allowed and the field goal. But it's Aaron Rodgers. They kind of got caught laughing over. But I really think they were phenomenal, and Nick Bosa really rejuvenizing that team. And once this Niners team is healthy, I think that this team can be a threat. And they're going to have a huge test against obviously Seattle next week. And then my third team, I'm probably going to go with the Packers. I think the Packers. I think the Packers are phenomenal. I think Aaron Rodgers, has just been phenomenal the past 2 games. And obviously Devontae Adams is proving to you why he's the best receiver in the league. The only thing that I think is really what I'm concerned about a little bit is the defense. Obviously the defense, Zadarius Smith has been out, but allowing 28, allowing a touchdown with 2 seconds left and 28 unanswered, their defense has not been able to help out the Packers much, and I think you have the Niners, they started off slow, but if they didn't start off slow, I think that they might have lost that game. So, can't allow them to constant surges like that, and also allow even touchdowns. I think their defense has to button up a little bit more, but so far this Packers offense, you have Aaron Rodgers, he's going to lead you to many games. What about your top 3?
So my top 3 in the NFC, I'm in lockstep with you. I think the Rams are not just the class of the NFC. I think they're the class of the NFL right now. I think what they showed me on yesterday, going up against the defending champions and really putting it on them. You don't really see that many teams being able to do that against Tom Brady-led teams. I think Stafford has experienced a career revival in Los Angeles. Cooper Kupp and Stafford have great chemistry right now. It looks like a really good duo. Robert Woods, great possession receiver. And you got Deshaun Jackson to take the top off the defense and Tyler Higbee underneath. And you also mentioned the fact that Darrell Henderson was missing. I think he helps as well in the running game once teams start to put an extra safety over the top to guard against Deshaun Jackson and guys like Cooper Kupp and Woods getting attention. My second team, although, they didn't do too well, I'm still going to go with the Bucs. I still think that you don't count Tom Brady out at all. I think, once their secondary starts to get some pieces back, I think they'll be in the mix come season end as well, fighting for that number 1 seed. I think home field advantage is going to be very key. I think this year especially. I don't know if there's going to be many teams that are going to be able to go into LA and go up against that Rams unit. My third team, I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers. I think the Green Bay Packers have, outside of the first game, I think, Rodgers has shown who he is. The Niners defense is, very good, one of the most respected units in the league. I think him putting up 30 points against them was big, especially with his history against the Niners. Not really a good history against the Niners. The NFC Championship game and that game in the regular season that same year, the Niners blew him out. But now Rodgers seems to, have a different, I guess all this offseason chatter really has motivated him, and he really wants to go out of Green Bay if this is his last year on a final note. But although I think the Packers are number 3, I think if the Cardinals show me that they can hang with the Rams or even beat them, I think, they enter that conversation as well. This is Kyler Murray's big test this season. He's an MVP candidate as well. He didn't, perform too well against the Jaguars, but he's still, I think he still found a way to win the game. But now you're going to go up against a tougher defense. This is going to be your test. This is going to be the test for the Cardinals to see where they're really at. So definitely a game to look forward to.
And good teams find ways to win always. Last thing, and obviously we've recorded a while, but hey, it's all fun and game. Football is awesome. Last thing I want to touch on before we conclude today is, and a team we haven't talked about because they played on Thursday night. I think the Panthers have not been talked about enough. They're undefeated. I think one of 3 undefeated teams. I think them, the Cardinals, and the Rams, I think are the only ones. I really want to touch on them because not only because I think Darnold's been looking amazing, and Matt Rule is a phenomenal coach, but also news today was they traded for C.J. Henderson, and I think this is huge because C.J. Henderson was like a top 15 draft pick last year, and they already have a great corner. The name is blanking on me, but they drafted him with the 8th pick, and who went down, obviously not looking good. JC Horn, that's the name. Blanking on me, my bad. But this Panthers, I mean, if JC Horn can come back and CJ Henderson will get integrated in that offense, I mean, I think this Panthers team could be, a force to be reckoned with. Darnold, the way he's playing, and the receivers that they have, and I think their receivers last year had, I think each had 1,000 yards, I think, and CMC when he comes back is good. I really think this Panthers team, everyone should watch out to them, and they have a huge test against Dallas. So your thoughts on the Panthers so far?
Yeah, I mean, you look at this Panthers team. I think Matt Rule is looking like he's a coach of the year candidate right now with how he has built this team on defense. I think most of their picks the past 2 seasons have been on defense, and it has really shown thus far. Although JC Horn going down is a big injury, I think we'll see when he comes back. But I think CJ Henderson can help alleviate some of that, some of the loss off of that. But the win came at a cost. One of the best players in the league, Christian McCaffrey, went down with the hamstring. And although they did win the game, I thought the offense looked a little different. I think Chuba Hubbard is capable. I don't think you
Mhm.
need an elite running back in this league. But what Christian McCaffrey can do, I mean, the guy can run inside the tackles, outside the tackles, catch out of the backfield, pass protect. There's a reason why, he's the number one pick in fantasy. All those touches he gets, that offense runs through him. So we'll see how they, deal with that loss. But I am definitely encouraged by Sam Darnold. I
Mhm.
think he's, I thought he was dealt a bad hand in New York, like how Zach Wilson seems to be going through the struggles over there. But yeah, Matt Rule's definitely got this team in the right direction. I think they definitely have the pieces to win in the future. I thought, Matt Rule was one of the guys that I know you wanted for the Giants,
For
right?
sure.
I mean,
Phenomenal
I
coach.
feel like I feel like maybe the Giants would be. I don't know if they'll be 3-0, but I definitely feel like they'll be in a better situation right now, maybe 2-1. I think something along those lines. But yeah, Matt Rule did the same thing he did in college. Once the first year was kind of rough, but the second, third, fourth years, that's when he starts to hit the ground running. And he's definitely my early head coach of the year pick for sure.
And another thing I want to touch on. Last year, we saw the potential that this team had. I mean, going up against the number one seed. Even when the Panthers were not like looking so hot, and I think they only had like 4 wins. They only lost by a 2-point conversion touchdown. And bear in mind, they almost had a touchdown early in the game when Teddy Bridgewater, I think, fumbled the football, which also led to a Packers touchdown. So we know that this team, even when they were at their worst, was going to toe to toe with one of the best teams in the NFC last year. So this team is capable. This team is capable of going to the playoffs, and this team is very capable of hanging with any team really. I think this Panthers team is very underrated, and I think going if they get a win in Dallas, I think more people are going to start turning their heads to the Panthers, and it's a team that we should not overlook. All right, that's been. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I think the test is gonna come when they play a team like the Bucks. How well do they fare against Tom Brady? Because ultimately, right now, the Bucks are still the class of that division. I mean, not right now if you look at the standings, but um, you know, going up against Brady twice a year, I mean, at the very least, you got to be able to win one. Maybe you have to win two to win that division. But they definitely have the pieces. I think Matt Rule, players like to play for him. He was well respected in college. He's well respected right now. We'll see how how they deal with the JC Horn and Christian McCaffrey injury. But I think, I think Matt Rule's got this team headed in the right direction.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you again, Samalbai, for coming on. This has been Express and Refresh, episode 2. So thank you guys all for watching. I think tomorrow we'll have episode on the Dear Evan Hansen review, and followed by that we will have a podcast on the Thursday night recap between the Jaguars and Joe Burrow. I guess before we conclude, any thoughts on that game? I'm expecting the Bengals to win after getting a huge win against Steelers. I think they're going to just find a way to be able to win. The Jaguars still struggling. I think I expect the Bengals to win.
All I'll say is, if you're looking for a defense in fantasy, just pick up the Bengals defense. That's all I got to say.
All right, thank you again, Salambai. Again, we'll have we'll have the Dear Evan Hansen episode up on Wednesday morning, and Friday morning we'll have the podcast with my guests Hamad, my brothers Ibrahim and Hasib. So stay tuned for that. This has been Expression Refresh. Thank you again, Salambai, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Take care, everyone.